Okay, welcome to this month's song breakdown. This month we're going to be breaking down The Deepest Roots, which is off The Ties That Bind. Now, if you've seen one of these things before, what you'll probably remember is that I split it into two. I split it into the first half where I talk about the lyrics and themes behind the song, and then the second half where I talk about how we actually came about like realising the song, both in terms of like production and how we recorded it and things like that. So without further ado, let's get on to the lyrics and themes.
Our love has come to run.
Okay, so lyrically and thematically, this song is, as the name suggests, is about a very deep connection. But it's about a connection with yourself as well as a connection with other people. So it's about a sort of connecting with your more instinctual self, and it's about also connecting with people on a deeper level than perhaps society allows us to sometimes. Society can be quite a superficial thing, and actually when you form deeper connections with people, that's far more meaningful, like, you know, Facebook friends, for example, as opposed to friends that are real flesh and blood in real life. So this is kind of what the song's a little bit about, and it's also about finding very special people and having a connection with them in a way which you've never had a connection with anybody ever before. So yeah, that's what The Deepest Roots is about. So now on to the way we actually achieved the song.
Our love has come to run.
So I did my usual and I went back into my phone and looked at early recordings that I made. And I think the first recording I made was October 2017, something like that. And it was very basic. But the thing about this song is because it's an acoustic song, you will notice that it doesn't change massively, but there are more subtle changes to look out for in this song as I go through and break it down. So firstly, I'll play a little bit from the very first recording I ever did of this song. So I'll play a bit now. So you can see, even from the outset, it's still very recognisable from the song that ended up on the album. The chord structure is slightly different, the rhythm is a tiny bit different, there's a slightly pushed nature to it that isn't there necessarily on the album, but essentially the chords are the same. And while I'm mentioning chords, actually, that's one thing that always stuck out about this song the most is a lot of stuff we do in Morass Of Molasses is quite riff-based and melody-based, whereas this is a very chord song. It's a more traditional song in the respect that I'm strumming chords and then singing along with it. And I have to confess that at first, when I wrote this song, I wasn't sure if it was something that would fit with Morass Of Molasses because it doesn't have that groove to it. It is almost folky in some ways. But the more I worked on the song, the more I realised that it actually fitted in with the themes of the album, and that's actually the more important thing. So yeah, so then the next progression obviously was for me to start playing around with how I was going to sing along with it. And so I remember experimenting with a few different ways of singing it. I'll play one for you now.
When we are free from the burden of control, we can embrace the primal forces of our soul.
So you can hear that kind of similar to what ended up on the album. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar. But I also played around with a sort of a slightly different way, a more maybe expressive way of singing it, a sort of more downbeat way, I guess. So I'll play a bit of that for you as well.
When we are freed from the burden of control, we can embrace the primal forces.
So you can see, simply by singing it in a slightly different way, it had a slightly different feel to it. But I think in the back of my mind, I did sort of have this idea that because this song was about connection, that I would like another voice on it as well as my voice. And now something that most of you probably don't know is that before I got the person who ended up on singing on the album, Sean, to sing on it, me and Raj actually played around with, I guess, doing a duet, as it were, on this song. So I'm sure you'll be interested to hear that. So I'll play a little bit of that for you.
When we are free from the burden of control, we can embrace the primal forces of our soul.
And I first listened to that on my phone. I hadn't probably listened to it since the day we recorded it. And you know, it has its qualities to it, but I think in the back of my mind, I kind of also knew that because a lot of themes of masculinity and femininity run through a lot of the songs that I write, that, you know, I thought about getting a female voice on it, and I have obviously on previous recordings before I did this one, had guest singers in and stuff like that. And so I thought of Sian, my friend Sian, and she came into the studio and she recorded her parts for this, and she recorded her parts for Legend of the Five Sons at the same time, and she even did some little bits of backing vocals on some of the songs. I wonder if you guys can pick out which bits they are. So yeah, she came in and did it all in one go, and I've already talked before in a previous video about how amazing she was. It's just, her voice is otherworldly, and when we sang together, it was no diss to Raj, obviously, but it just, our voices went really well together, and it really, the blend between the male and the female voices just was totally what I was looking for on this, and it kind of reinforced that connection with people on it, I feel like. And yeah, really happy with it. But then the interesting part, I did actually, obviously if you've listened to the whole of the version on the album, what you'll know is that after the main song happens, there is actually a kind of sort of, for want of a better way of putting it, spiritual jam that happens afterwards. And there's a little bit of a story behind that. That was Raj's idea, and so he did get, obviously, to eventually appear on this song. And it was this, I'll probably get this wrong, but so he'll correct me, but I think it's this sort of spiritual concept of something called Nad, and it's about like kind of the sound of the universe and this kind of stuff. And he explained it to me, and I understood most of it. Anyway, and we had this idea that we wanted to have this kind of jam at the end of it, and I'd had this like little bit of guitar floating around inside my head that I'd actually made up like the day after I'd done some LSD, and I'd just been this complete loop of guitar that I was playing, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And because it was a loop, I figured it could get almost like trance-like, and then Raj sort of wrote some drums. And the interesting thing we did with this was we tried to take it outside Western rhythms into more Eastern rhythms, and we tried to deliberately shift the beat sometimes in it, so when you listen to it, you'll hear that there are moments when it feels slightly uncomfortable, where the drums rhythm is shifting underneath the guitar rhythm, and then the guitar rhythm shifts underneath the drum rhythm, and then they sort of sync up again, and then they shift again. And that's something that's very not Western to do stuff like that. And actually we recorded it all in one take, and I remember we were in the studio and me and Raj were looking at each other. It was quite intimate actually, looking at each other through the studio glass, and then we just played it together. And so it's not to a click track or anything, it's just like a jam, and then we put some stuff on it afterwards, like some theremin and things like that to make it sound a bit more spooky. But yeah, it was kind of the perfect way to end the album really. So yeah, I was really pleased with how this song turned out, because it was kind of, had quite a spiritual content to it, and it was sort of sums up what the whole album was about, which was kind of like a deep connection with people. And I got to have a connection with my friend Sian and a connection with my friend Raj in the actual making of the song that was all about having a deep connection with someone. So it's perfect really. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will leave you with a bit of The Deepest Roots, and I'll see you next month. Bye bye.
When we are free from the burden of control, we can embrace the primal forces of our soul.